everyone. This is the Bridge Building with Angela podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let's get some housekeeping stuff out of the way. For a while, I was called Confessions of Mommy. And I felt like I needed to fine-tune that because I didn't want to just talk about issues pertaining to moms. I wanted to be able to talk about all topics because I really feel like God created me to be a bridge. And I remember years ago when my husband, Larry, and I don't know if we were married or dating, and he came up, I think we were married, and he came up with an idea saying we should call it bridge builders, as far as what I want to do, because I really feel like I want to be a bridge for people to walk across. I want to provide insight. I want to provide encouragement from just my own journey in life, and let that be information that people can carry over. And as they walk across that bridge, walk across to get the help that they need to accomplish their goals, to achieve and do whatever. So I said, you know what? We're rebranding. 2020 is a new year and I'm rebranding. And so the Bridge Building with Angela podcast has been birthed. So, hey, I gave birth. But I have a special guest with me today, and I wanted this guest to be with me for my first show as the Bridge Building with Angela podcast, because first of all, he helped me come up with the name of this podcast many years ago, before podcast was even a thing, but also because I just find him extremely interesting, and this is my husband, Larry. So welcome, Larry.
Well, hello. How are you, Miss Angela?
I'm doing good, and I'm thankful that you were going to join us. And
I'm glad to be here.
He's so cute. But anyway, and I appreciate him because, he has loved me when I didn't even love myself, and and I can be very unlovable at times. And I appreciate you, Larry, for being that rock for me. But I also am very encouraged by you. And for some of you all who don't know, Larry and I have been married now for how long? 2006, right? Mm-hmm. So what is that? 13 years?
Yep.
Okay. And so when I met Larry, he was a widower. Okay. His wife, Melody, had passed away. And when we met and exchanged numbers, and I'm not going to tell you how he got how I got his number. We'll go through that in another podcast. But one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to him is because, I'm very inquisitive, and I had never met a man who lost a wife before. I'd always met women, who had lost their spouses. And I was really curious as to how does a man deal with that kind of loss? And so that has always been like something I admired about you, So before I go into and tell your story for you and everything, today's podcast, I want to focus on, especially around this season of Christmas and Hanukkah and holiday, New Year, where so many people also can find this very depressing time. You know that, Larry, that a lot of people, they have lost parents, children, spouses. And so the holidays can be very depressing. And one of the things I really admired about you when I saw how you went through your loss is that you were not negative about it. You grieved, but however, you weren't like one of those down with hope type people. So talk about that for me.
Well, basically what happens is in our lives, we know we're not here forever. Some people even have exit plans. But what happens is as you lose someone, you still have to keep moving forward. So God has given us a drive to live. Mm-hmm. So when I lost my wife, a lot of things happened in that short span. Mm-hmm. I lost my wife, and don't get it twisted. I was depressed for a while. I was married to her for 17 years.
Wow.
She was my best friend, and when I lost her, it was a loss.
Right.
And I got down in the dumps and all that stuff, but I still was able to go to work. Mm-hmm. I still was trying to focus on my son, who after that loss, he started acting out. And he got himself in some trouble. So in that short span, I lost her, and then
Mm-hmm.
after you and I married, I lost him to the correctional system.
Right.
But I tell everyone, what happens is you have to have drive in yourself. You have to be able to stop things, start things, and keep going.
Well, let me ask you this though: why would the death? Okay, because the way she passed, it was a sort of like a longer illness. It wasn't like it was an instant, unexpected thing. Correct?
Right. She had heart failure.
Okay, so she had a stroke months prior, correct, or
Yes.
something, and then just the health declined.
Yes.
And so my question to you is it sometimes easier to do, and maybe I don't want to say easier, because that sounds very cavalier, but to deal with a loss when you have some warning, in opposed to just instantly that person is taken? Or is it the same?
It's the same, because a loss is a loss. As long as you have that person, I don't care if they're on a breathing machine, that person is still there. When you lose them, they're no longer there. So that is, think of your life as a slice of pie. Somebody just took a slice. And what happens is, even though you don't have a full pie, you still have pie.
Right, that's
So
true.
what you do is you take the pie you have left and keep moving forward.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that if you did not have Anthony as your son, because a lot of times children will help us, give us a reason to live on, would you have then chosen to become a recluse and depressed, or for people who have lost the one, did he give you a reason to live, or would you have done it anyway if you didn't have him?
I would have done it anyway, because I have been in situations where I knew there was some type of intervention, because certain things could have went one way, but they went another way. And I just knew that no matter what, I'm gonna survive, no matter what happens. Now, at times I didn't want to survive,
Right.
when it happened. But I had to move on for myself, and not only for myself, but for my son.
Were people helpful in that when you're going through the grieving process? Or, because I always think in my mind, if I lose you or the girls, God forbid, that I'm the type, I don't want to really be around a lot of people. I already told you, if I die before, and especially while our girls are young, I don't believe in something called a repass. That's something like, especially in the black, I don't know if white people, you all do this or not, but in the black community, most of the times, after we go to the graveyard, cemetery, then we go back to the church or some hall and we all get together and eat and everything. I've requested that my husband, don't bring our girls back there to be around people grieving and sad and crying, talking about me. Take them on a trip to the beach or Disney or just home, anywhere but there. And that is my dying wish, and he's going to, do that. But I don't like to be around a lot of people. So if that happened to you, I would do the same thing. I would whisk the kids away and it just be me and them, because I'm just really not one to want to be so open about the grief. I need to process it first. Were you that way as far as wanting people around you, or did you just want to just be left alone?
Well, it was both, because at times I didn't want to be bothered, but at times I needed to be bothered.
Did you have to request that time? Did you have to say, look, I don't want to be bothered, or what did you do?
No, when I don't want to be bothered, I would go.
Okay, I got you.
And I'd not be around.
Or not answer the phone or whatever that meant.
Yes, that type of stuff. But
Right.
There were times when talking to people helped me a lot.
And what were some of those things? Because again, talk to us who want to always be like a comfort to our friends and family who have lost people. And I was told one of the worst things you could tell someone is, I know how you feel, if you don't.
Well, how can you know how someone feels realistically?
It's true.
You can't. You can tell them that you're sorry for their loss, and the best thing to tell them, in my opinion, is, how can I help you today?
Okay.
What can I do for you? That will draw them. That drew me closer to the person that told me that.
Yeah.
And I was told, hey, if you just want to talk, if you just want to sit and cry, call me. I'll sit there with you.
Right.
And that was my friend Mike. And I told him, I said, this is difficult, because I had parents leave me,
Right.
but my wife, you know, it was kind of hard.
Yeah.
But he said something to me, and you know, I didn't realize, you know, the spiritual world as much as I did after that loss. He told me, he said, you know, there are two things. You're going to be born and you're going to die. And he said, in between there, defines you. And I was like, man, you wise. You know, but
right. But it doesn't lessen the pain, because I would imagine, like I said, losses, I don't want to, again, sound like I don't care, or very cavalier, but I remember hearing someone say years ago, in times of peace, children bury their parents. In time of war, parents bury their children. And I thought that was very profound, because I think about the various wars, Vietnam, Korea, even Desert Storm, where 19 and 20-year-old men and women were coming back here in body bags, and their parents had to do the unthinkable, which is bury their child. The natural order of life is you think your parents going to live to be 90 or 100, and then you bury them. No parent ever thinks of burying their 10, 11, 15, 20, 30-year-old child. And, you know, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, this is true, but see, in the order of things, you know, illnesses, accidents, anything can happen.
That's true.
And
That's true.
What happens is you have to, nobody is really ready for this type of stuff.
Right.
So you have to understand what happened. And like you said before, people grieve differently. So sometimes you might need to process it before you can process it with somebody.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the day that Melody passed, what I did was I went and found my son and took him to the hospital with me. And we viewed her together. And I wanted to hold him, but really I wanted him to hold me.
Right,
you know.
And he was a young teen at that time. What was he like? Maybe 15?
Yeah,
15.
he was.
Okay.
He was.
So he
very
wasn't
young.
like 5.
No,
he was young. Yeah.
But we prayed over her, and we touched her. I kissed her on the forehead. He kissed her on the forehead, and we left and came home, and we sat in the vehicle for probably about an hour, just talking about the good times that we had with her that soon. You know,
did it feel surreal to you that she was gone? Were you sort of preparing yourself as her health declined, or what?
Well, a lot of things was going on because she was in a lot of pain. And one thing, I was relieved that the pain for her was over.
I got you.
And I believe that she went somewhere where she needed to be, you know, to heaven. And so I told my son that, hey, we got to carry on. So shortly after that, after the funeral and everything, I was back at work, business as usual. But the memory of her is always going to be there. When I married you, there wasn't a thing of I was replacing the person.
Right.
What it was I fell in love with you, and I had a new wife. And I was so glad that you understood that, you know, I had a wife, and I was with her for so long. And, you know, I still have a picture that I'm saving for my son.
Right,
of
course.
her.
Yeah.
You know, and
well, you know, it's funny because on the same line, because there were times, sometimes, especially in the beginning, like when you and I were dating, you would sometimes call me Mel. And it never really, like, it didn't piss me off or nothing, you know what I'm saying? Because I knew, again, this was part of you. Like, you all were married, you all were one. So, I mean, at one time you did it after we got married, I don't know, you know, and it was like, dang, you know, but then my heart just felt bad because I'm like, yeah, what if I was married to someone for 17 years, dated them probably a couple of years prior? That's a long time.
True. What was going on there was the comfort that she gave me, you gave me.
Right.
And I was trying to not call you that.
Yeah.
But you made me feel so much comfortable, so comfortable, because that's what she did. And you do the same thing. Right. Different way, but you do the same thing.
But I also understood it. And that's why I would,
By the way, I'm glad you did.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely understood it, and definitely. So some of you all may be remarried after your spouse or someone had suffered a loss or divorce or whatever, and they may accidentally call you that person's name. I'm not saying that it may not bother you, but particularly if their spouse passed away, sometimes it's just going to happen because that's just a part. It's just like if you. I remember when I first had the girls. Our daughter, I was always used to calling myself Aunt Angie, because I didn't have any children for so long. And so when I became a mother, instead of saying, oh, come to mommy, I would say, come to Aunt Angie. So you get conditioned, basically is what I'm saying. You got conditioned as a husband, Mel's husband, and now, But let me ask you this, because it seems, and I could be wrong, let me know if I am. It seems that when a man loses a wife, he seems to be able to get up, pick up, and move on sooner, or just move on, period. But it seems as though some women, when they lose a spouse, it's like they just can't move forward. They just can't go on. Like they don't remarry. Now some do, but a great deal, it seems like, just don't. What is your view on that?
I don't believe that is gender specific.
Okay.
Because people are people. I have a friend who lost his wife, and he just remains single and does his own thing because in his mind nobody could replace her, and he didn't want to deal with nobody else. That. And well, him and I used to talk all the time. I'm not going to say his name.
Yeah, for sure.
We used to talk all the time. And one of the things was I told him was I said that I agreed with him at first. Because, you can go dating and all this stuff and all that stuff. But after, a month or so, I was not in a good place with that. I didn't feel comfortable with that. I'm not saying that I have to have a wife. Right. But when you came along, you were the one. And I was like, well, okay, here we go.
I think also the circumstances behind the mate leaving dictates a lot of times. Like, for example, with me, my first spouse did not die. I divorced him. You understand? And so it was like, I'm done with that joker. I want to move on. I want to find the right one. Whereas many cases too, I believe some people, just the grieving process can be just such a tedious thing till they're just not ready in many cases. And that's fine too.
Well, this friend that I was talking about a moment ago has not been remarried, and his wife, she passed, I'd say 18 years ago, and he still feels the same way. Now, I don't know what, he might go out or something. I don't get into that with him. Right. But to this day, we still talk about man stuff and friend stuff, and he tells me how he's doing, and I tell him how I'm doing. He always asks about my daughters. It was surprising because, I tell him, he'll say, hey, how are the girls? Well, thank you for asking, and then I'll tell him how they are. He's never asked me how you were doing. And I was like, is that because of the way he feels about, losing his wife or what? Right. Because he is a nice guy, But, I showed him a picture of you. He didn't come to our wedding, but I showed him a picture of you, and he said, oh, you did good. And I'm like, gee, from the picture, huh? But anyway.
Well, let me ask you this, though. What would you say to people, especially around the holidays now, to just get through the loss of a loved one, and I know every situation is different depending if it's a spouse, a child, whatever the situation, but just a loss in general, what would you say?
I would just tell them to understand what happened, deal with it as they can, but always the ones that are left, take the same energy that you would put in if they were still here, and spread it out for the ones that are still left. And that way your body's still giving off the same amount of energy, and it's two people that are important to you.
That's good. That's good. I like that, you know. And I always say, because I'm a big proponent on getting some help, you know, there's so many avenues for people. If it's support groups.
Oh, yeah.
So many support groups for people who've lost children. And it's specific to your loss, you know. Even down to, like, if your child was killed in a drunk driving accident. They have support groups specifically for that. You can find the groups online. It's just so many things that you can reach out. But for you all listening, you know, help won't always come to you. You have to go to it, you know.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Well, I believe that sometimes you have to talk things out.
For sure.
See, you have to be very careful of who you talk things out to.
True that. True.
True. Professional help is always good.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
At the age I am, men that in my age group, we don't believe in talking to like therapists and stuff like that, psychiatrists and all that stuff. Me personally, I think they have a great job. They are needed.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know, whatever keeps you grounded.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a therapist, a deacon, or what, talk to somebody, because somebody has went through something similar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they have talked to somebody. You know, so. And
you know what, too? You know when someone's giving you advice that just doesn't sit right with you. For example, let's say you've lost a spouse. Well, not even to death, but let's say you lost a boyfriend this holiday season and he just broke up with you. You might have another girlfriend be like, girl, what you need to do, you need to hit that club. We need to go do this. And you know, you're like, nah, I don't want to do it. I ain't trying to become holiday hoe. You understand? And so, you know when people are giving you advice that's not as good as others, you know? And so I think, too, it's important to just listen to that inner voice inside of you. If you still feel empty after talking to someone, you got to find someone else to talk to.
Well, it's funny. You know what's right and what's wrong. So, you know, I when my wife died, people were thrusting their friends toward me.
Was this like, you mean to date?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So after, I got you. Because a lot of people feel like the way to replace someone, or especially if it's a breakup, but in a death, sometimes people try to be a little bit more compassionate, but not always. They feel like to get over the person, you need to get, quote, under or next person, you know.
Well,
but
that's true.
You need to be with someone else. But how was that for you?
Well, this is where you have to, you know, find your groove and stay in it, because people have a tendency to push you in a direction they think you need to go in.
Right, yeah.
And only you and God know what direction you need to go in.
Right.
But you have to think about it before you even go in a direction.
Right.
See, the thing is you can't just walk and not know where you're going. Because if you do that, you're going to be aimlessly wandering through life.
That's right.
So, you know, pick a direction, focus, and do what you got to do.
Right.
I think I was blessed because as the events were happening to me, I started getting better employment choices. I mean, don't get it twisted. I did go on a couple of dates, but I just I wasn't feeling that.
Right.
So, and well, you know the story. You lived it. I met you, and that changed.
Right.
Well,
let me ask you this. When did you know you were ready to date? For our listeners who may be saying, okay, specifically some men, you know, they have, their mate has either passed or they're divorced. How did you know when you were really ready? Because some people are afraid to dip their toe in the dating pool.
Well, what I did, this might sound corny to some, but what I did was, even though my wife wasn't here, I was talking to her. You know, now I'm not crazy.
Right.
I was talking to her saying, well, you know, I think that it's time for me to do something different. And I left it at that, and I prayed about it, and I felt good with it. So I was out to do something different.
Well, for the listeners, what do you think? What's a good point of advice or reference for them to sort of know when they may be ready? What is that they may feel, or because some people try to tell you when your grieving should be over with. Some people need to tell you, oh, you don't got together too soon, because you even heard that sometimes when you and I.
Yeah. Well, that's true, but see, this is the funny thing about grieving. Everybody grieves in their way, in their time.
True.
One person may grieve for a day. One person may grieve for 5 years. Who's to determine your grieving period?
That's true.
That's you. When it's over for you, it's over for you.
It's true.
And you'll know. You'll really know.
Right.
You'll come to peace with that person not being here. You'll come to peace with life going on. You know, and see, like, instead of aimlessly wandering, you start walking, you know, in a direction.
Right. And,
you know, if the person that you meet is for you, you'll know it. You know, don't just the first one comes along, you know.
Right.
You got to know the person. You got to understand what you're doing.
Right.
And you also have to have a plan for yourself so that you can share that plan with the person or whoever. But if you're not ready, don't do it.
Don't do it. Let's speak also to those who may have loved ones incarcerated like we do. You know, Anthony, I call him my son. I didn't birth him, but I feel like when you get married, you become one, and his is mine and mine is his. And so I call Anthony my son. And so when he, you know, how do you cope with that?
That's funny because yesterday I talked to him. You know, we have a Saturday talk. When he called, and the first thing he asked me, he said, "Dad, you know I love you, but how's Mom?" I said, "She's doing fine." He said, "Where are they?" I said, "They doing stuff, you know." And he said, "Yeah, it's around that time of year." And I said, "Yeah." And he told me, he said, "You know, Dad, it's funny. I knew Mom before you knew Mom, and I am glad you chose Mom." And I was like, "Dude, don't get it twisted. Mom chose me." You know, but you know, it's with my son being away, I get sad. His birthday is in December, and Christmas is in December.
Right.
And you know, I miss you know being with him, talking with him. And we talk so much on the phone when he calls me on Saturday. He's like, Dad, you know, we got to slow down because, see, I can't let my feelings get loose in here. I said, oh, I got you, son. So we start talking manly stuff, and then he hangs up, you know. Yeah. But, that is one of the challenges of my life, dealing with my son being incarcerated. And one of the things is I thank God so much that he's not hurt. He's in a good place and not into the, how do you say, the prison lifestyle. Yeah. You know, because he reads a lot. He's been going to school. He's taken some classes. You know, he keeps himself busy.
Right. He's doing the time. He's not letting the time do him.
That's correct.
And that's what you have to do. That's right. But see, for me, it's hard. Like, it's emotionally, I block that out because I'm already a very stressed type person anyway, worrying about these girls here and you and life. And then when I think about him, it just takes me to a whole nother level of feeling helpless because I'm a fixer. And I'm like, dang, I don't have the Kardashian money where I can, you know, get the best lawyers and Johnny Cochran him out of there. Do you understand?
I understand that.
And so I feel helpless. I've written letters. I've talked to people. And it's just like, God, I just want somebody to review his case. What can we do? So it's like someone may be listening. They have a son or daughter who's incarcerated. They've done all they can do as far as financially and even legally. How do they gain peace at this time of year?
Well, see, you're never going to gain peace until they're free.
But how do you gain enough peace where you're not worried sick, turning to drugs, alcohol, whatever?
Well, never stop moving. Now, it may take time to do things, but just do them.
Right.
You know, figure out what you want to do, what direction you want to move in that arena, and do it. Me personally, I'm a lawyer. get some legal advice,
right,
and see what we can do.
So you're saying do whatever you can do, exhaust all measures that you can afford and that you can do. Don't go mortgaging your home and losing your home and all that. However, though, what I'm saying is, I think you still got to come to a point in your heart, spirit, and mind. Like what I have to do, even with our girls, is I have to say, okay, look, Lord, I cannot stress myself out when they're at school. I'm constantly worrying, what if a shooter comes in and kills them? There comes a point we have to say, okay, we have to trust God. You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day, you can be in a storm and still have peace.
Well, you can't be afraid of living.
Right.
You know, I talk to my son a lot about where he is. We both know how he got there.
Right.
But it was assuring to me when he said, I don't ever want you to do anything that will jeopardize your way of life for something stupid that I did.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
but you know, it gets rough.
Right.
You know. I mean, yeah, I shed a tear on it, you know, every now and then, especially after I get off the phone with him.
Right.
You know, missing his little corny jokes or, you know, but you know, what you got to do is exhaust every means you can do.
And then after you do that,
then you have to have peace with, I've tried this. You can't you can keep trying different things.
right.
But you got to watch yourself because you can exhaust your savings and all that stuff. You got to be careful.
Your energy, your mental stability, everything. And so I think at the end of the day, it just comes to, you have to say, okay, God, I got to trust you. You know, I've tried everything else. The Bible talks about how after having done all to stand, you just have to stand. And stand, therefore, with your feet planted in the gospel and in the word of God and in his truth. And it makes a big difference. So let's wrap that section up real quick. But I want to do a quick recap, a takeaway. So basically, during this holiday season, for those who may have lost a spouse or a loved one, what would you say to them?
I would say respect them and in your living. And you see, when you lose a when you lose a loved one, you never stop loving them. It's just that love is still here in your heart,
right?
But it's going somewhere, you know, and that's why you want to keep their memory alive. Remember stuff like birthdays and stuff like that, and you know, just hold on to the ones that are here, and that love that you would put to that other person if they were here, just spread it out to them too. Hold them a little tighter, you know.
Right. And if they don't have someone to spread it to, you know, there's always on yourself, but also it's always other groups. Like let's say there are children that need to be, I'm not saying not always just fostered or adopted, but just being a big brother or big sister. There are senior citizens that need that if you lost a parent, you know. There are babies in some hospitals, they have programs you can just hold the babies who don't have parents. So there's so many different ways you can still pour out that love to others where it's not just internalized and you're just a ball of sadness and depression.
Well, I would add to that and say start in your family. You know, because you're going to have cousins, nieces, brothers, sisters,
somebody, needs some love.
Yeah. Start there first.
Yeah,
and then after you exhaust that, then spread it out.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So now, years later, you've moved on. People say that, and I don't know if this is true. You let me know. They say time heals all wounds. Is that true?
Yes and no. Time gives you a period to resolve within yourself the issue with the loss. Okay? But, you know, when you have that loss, that wound is still there. But me personally, I say, well, this person my loss is in a better place. I did that with my parents, with my first wife, and it all started with, I had a favorite aunt, and when she died, that lady could bake some pies. When she died, I was like, oh no, who's gonna make the pie?
Who gonna cook?
But I'm not taking from mom.
No,
but,
of course.
What happens is you have to move on,
right?
Keep on moving, and just remember, never forget, always remember, because that memory is part of the love that you had for that person.
That's good. That's good. I like that. I like that a lot. The holidays also, for some people, they like build unrealistic expectations up. Like switching gears a little bit. You see all these commercials. Well, first of all, let's talk about some of the movies. I love Lifetime and Hallmark Channel. They started showing Christmas stuff like a few months ago, month and a half, almost 2 months ago, maybe. And all the movies, they're basically about the same. Someone goes back to an old town or wherever, and they find this childhood sweetheart, and they fall in love, blah, blah, blah. And so a lot of people, because they may not be in like a relationship, or they may not have the money to buy all these presents, many people, they build up the holidays, and it's such a letdown to them. Had you ever been that way? Or
no, because it was times when I didn't have the money to give gifts and stuff like that. But it's not about that. See, Christmas, you're really celebrating Jesus, and the commercialization of Christmas, when that started happening. You wanted to give the diamond or ain't nothing wrong with giving.
I'm about to
gift.
say, what? Ain't nothing wrong with no diamond there, brother.
No, it's nothing wrong with giving the gifts.
Right. I know
but don't feel bad when you can't afford to give. Absolutely. Because this is the thing. The presence of saying a nice thing to a person is equally as good.
Yeah.
Now you can't put a key in it and drive it off, but no. I'm just saying, it's because it's funny. I've had people come up to me and say things, and I needed to hear it at the time they said it.
That's very true.
And it was like, wow, I needed it.
Yeah. Money couldn't have bought that. No gift could replace that.
Well, that's why interaction with people.
Yeah.
In your time. Christmas time.
Yeah.
Interaction with people is great. Even if you just go over a friend's house and eat dinner. Yeah. Or you go over there and sit, hey, it's the holidays. Let me sit with you. Yeah. That stuff is great. It doesn't always have to be, well, I got you this. Because I deal with that in the workplace.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Some people give you gifts.
Right.
And you might give gifts to some people.
Right.
But there are like 4,000 people at my job.
You just can't do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not even going to try.
No. Yeah, people just have to understand.
Well, they
too.
do. Yeah. They do, most of them.
Yeah. Can you give an example of what is your most memorable Christmas? Let's talk about when you were younger, maybe a child. You have one that comes to mind?
Yes, I do.
All right.
My favorite Christmas, I was living on Alabama Avenue. I was probably 8 years old. And
that's in D.C., Alabama Avenue, D.C. Okay.
Washington, D.C.
Yes.
The hood for y'all that, my sister, she was working at the phone company. And she bought me a G.I. Joe tank.
Oh, wow.
And I could not... Look, I played with that. I slept on the floor with the tank.
Jesus.
And, it was the greatest thing. And she just watched me open that thing. And I saw her smile.
Right.
And I remember her. She still got the same smile.
Wow.
And it was the best Christmas I ever had.
Really?
And it was like, I didn't even ask for that.
You didn't even know you were getting it?
No.
Wow.
She knew I liked G.I. Joes.
Yeah.
But when she gave me that tank, I was like, wow. I was like, I love my sister.
Oh, so Claire, if you're listening, thanks. He thanks you for it.
Yeah. Always.
Let me see now. What is my most... Christmas used to be so magical to me, and I have not felt that feeling of magic and excitement probably for 30 years. it used to be magical. I remember we would decorate Mom would decorate the tree. I think this was even before the twins were born. Maybe Tom was born or baby. And the tree would go in the living room. Mom and Dad would be playing Johnny Mathis albums, Christmas album. Or Nat King Cole. And the music was just so rich. Daddy would open up the big old stereo and put the record on, and you can hear the needle. And I would sit there, and they would cut the lights off in the living room and just look at the tree, and it would be lit up. And Mom would be in the kitchen cooking, and I would just sit there. And the Johnny Mathis. And it's funny because the other day in the store, what store was I in? I forget which store. But Johnny Mathis was playing. I started singing the song, and I asked the lady, and I knew she would know because she was a woman of a particular age. Because youngins today don't know Johnny Mathis. Some of them don't know Nat King Cole, unfortunately. And so I said, this is Johnny Mathis. And I said, I used to listen to him on a record player. And she said, yeah, I did the same thing. And so, I was in the Dollar Tree. Yep, that's it. And so that was my most memorable Christmas. I don't know what Christmas that was. And I remember my dad used to dress up in Santa suits when we were little and kiss us goodnight. Because I believed in Santa until I was maybe 10, I think, or whatever. But so that's the memory that I chase, that feeling, and I just want to feel that again. And every Christmas Eve, the tradition, Mom and Dad would take us downtown again in DC to see the National Christmas tree right in front of we used to have in the White House. And back then, you could walk across in Pennsylvania Avenue, and the security wasn't like it is now, and things were just so much freer. And you could just walk around and see they had trees of every state represented around the big tree, and it was just a magical time. It was a magical time. But
let me say this. I'm gonna have to step my game up because I gotta give you some magic on Christmas. Because you gotta have that. The magic for Christmas for me now is watching my kids. Yeah. It is so funny watching them, do what they do.
Right.
But I gotta bring that magic back to you. Yeah. I'll let you finish your...
But yeah, that would be nice to have it come back because I look for that. And I wonder sometimes, is it not there because I just became such a jaded person over time, and me, and we'll do other shows about, so many other shows I like to have. I'm going to call it Hubby Sunday, like a play on words. But just every Sunday, just try to have Larry as my podcast guest because he has a lot of wisdom and insight, and so I appreciate it. But listen, you all, again, this holiday season, please do not feel that you have to be alone. There's someplace you can go. I know, if you're not, if you don't want to be around people that you quote unquote know, even some churches, some organizations are having activities and programs that you can come and just be a part of so you can feel a part of something. So, Larry, thank you so much for being my guest.
Anytime, dear.
I appreciate it. And also, hey, if you all like this song, this is my husband. Of course, he's a musician. He composed this song for me. So don't nobody try to steal it. But no, I'm just joking. And also, please subscribe, YouTube viewers, subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you can be notified when I upload other videos and audio podcasts. And just continue to subscribe to my channel. So thank you again. This is Angela Johnson Ayers with the Bridge Building with Angela podcast. Be blessed. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah. Happy holidays. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.